What really is a narcissist? The term gets thrown around a lot, but if you're like me, or you've really dealt with one directly, a clinically diagnosed narcissist, it's a lot deeper and darker than what most people think. Some people are just saying they're a narcissist because they didn't do what I wanted, right? I don't mean that at all. People think narcissist or evil shows up as Darth Vader or the dragon, but it's really not like that. In fact, these people are quite charming. They're quite friendly and winsome. Other personality disorders, things like borderline personality disorder or bipolar, they could be more erratic or antisocial. Narcissists tend to do a good job of making you feel good, making you feel great, winning you over. They're chameleons. Depending on who they're around, they adapt to fit in. They don't really have like a solid moral or framework by which they see life except service to self. Because if you've really seen or dealt with this, it's definitely had an effect on your mind, on your emotions, on your spirit, your soul. So the narcissist basically had a neglectful or abusive upbringing, and what that becomes is them turning. It's not like they say this one day, but over time, behaviorally, it's like they say, no one's going to hurt me anymore. I'm going to control and triangulate, even to the point of living or thinking in a non-reality. They distort reality to make something true for themselves or to push their way onto others. And it's interesting because one narcissist I knew, their parent was like, she was such a sweet kid, but they give all that up. That all dies because they say, I'm going to survive. I'm not going to be hurt. So it comes from insecurity. It comes from fear, ultimately. Fear of being seen or feeling like that helpless, powerless child or that uncared for child, which is interesting because most people would have compassion for someone like that. And I had all the compassion in the world for the backstory of the narcissists in my life. The problem is it gets to a point where they are doing or repeating what happened to them or worse. So spiritually, there's service to self, service to others, right? So there's always a crossover of these things. In fact, when you serve others, you're serving yourself. Let's say you start a business that helps people. Well, you're serving others, which actually winds up serving you. The narcissist is all service to self. So they would start the business only to be served in the end for their own benefit. That is, I'm going to get what I want. No one's going to hurt me in the end. If they try to, I'm going to hurt them first. I'm going to discard them and get away from them. And a key thing to keep in mind, though they may feel some emotions, I mean, I've seen them feel what seems like real emotions. I don't know if it's real in the moment and it goes away really fast or if it's just manipulative. But ultimately, you don't really mean anything to them. In fact, you're more of like a soul that they can derive energy and power from. And a lot of times narcissists, for example, in a relationship, will find someone who has low self-esteem or who's codependent or something like that, or who's really nice and compassionate because they know they'll put up with them more, and they know someone that they can't control at all is not going to work for them. So they'll tend to cut off people that they can't control. So this is politicians, celebrities. I know a celebrity therapist, and he said 70-80% of them are clinical narcissists. And it's unfortunate because instead of building a healthy self-esteem or confidence or being empowered to do great things like be a great actor or singer, they rather say, I will do anything, step over anybody, use anybody to get where I want to go. Because once I'm at the top, people are worshiping me, right? They kind of want to be worshipped. They kind of want to be worshipped. One narcissist I know had a lot of money and was always throwing parties and getting people together and taking people around and buying them things and taking them places, which honestly it wasn't a lot of money to them. Granted, some rich people won't even look at a common person, but what it was is to control them so they are kind of owned. And then really over time they say, oh, well, I did this, I did that, and they feel like you're not worshiping them enough. And this person cuts off friends, and every time I see or am around them, they have a new group of friends, right? They can just buy people if they have money to come around, and then, hey, you upset me, or maybe you confronted me in my behavior. Well, you're out of here because I did this for you, I did that for you, and all that. In a relationship, it's never really about love. It's always about what can I get from you? And there's a sad aspect because if they weren't loved as a kid properly, they're thwarting the ability to receive love because they're cutting it off and trying to control to get what they think is love, or they're never going to be truly vulnerable. So they wind up actually frustrating everyone or emotionally abusing, let's just say it, everyone around them. Like their kids, they have some love for their kids in an ultimate sense, let's say, but their kids become pawns. They have to control the kids. You need to, do this for me and that for me. And it's really crazy how it works because eventually kids learn and realize what I experience wasn't love, it was control. It was conditional love, not unconditional love, like most people would receive from a parent. Now, a more spiritual side to this, I don't know what you believe. I don't necessarily believe all of this, but there's something here is whether you believe in, creating brainwave patterns or you believe in fully demonic possessed people, demonically oppressed people. Some people say the narcissist has kind of left their own body a bit to allow this negative entity to come and abuse and take like soul energy from people. So a better way to explain it, why they don't have any empathy, why they don't really care, why everything's a triangulation, why they have to have the last word, have every dollar, be worshipped, is because that negative entity is kind of taken over. There's some aspect of truth there, even if it's just like a thought form that keeps repeating. They have killed their ability to have empathy, and only 2% of narcissists seek treatment. So hopefully this helps you understand them. If you are around them, I'm sure you felt a weird abuse. They can do weird things like compliment you and then rip your head off 10 minutes later. I've experienced that. You just realize that none of it's real. So for yourself, if you have to deal with one of these people, you have to learn to have boundaries and you have to learn to detach and not take it personally. They are still that kid, that 10, 12, 15-year-old kid, trapped in their trauma, in fear and insecurity, but with what seems like power. They can definitely cause you some problems if you're in a narcissistic divorce or business situation. But the best thing for you to do is to overcome that and get unstuck, even if it is personal, right? It's kind of not personal from them. They're just so focused on self, they don't feel any pain for who they're hurting. And I'm not saying that it's an excuse by any means. It's for you to detach and realize it's not really real and that they don't really have real power over you and who you are as a soul, as a being, even if they may exercise what seems like power in a practical or financial sense at times. And I know that's not easy. But the more you let go of that, they took so much from you, the more you can get back to actually being you and figuring out who you are and what limitations and false beliefs you may have placed on yourself or they may have placed on you. I first thought, gosh, am I like a horrible person? Why is this person acting like this? And then I realized 90% of this has nothing to do with me. And that's something you have to realize. It does not have to do with you. And in doing this, you start recovering who you are and becoming more of who you are and the real you, not the you that's in survival mode to stay away from the narcissistic abuse and just get through the day, right? And they won't like this. If you're able to just no contact with these people, don't deal with them. If you do have to deal with them, they won't like you doing well, but it doesn't really matter. And that's really your way out. It's not revenge or all these things. Sometimes family courts or people go on social media to blast a narcissist. They don't really care. They don't feel anything is the problem. And they can fool judges. They can fool counselors really well. So what's better is if you are detaching emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and rebuilding yourself, overcoming the blocks in your life to become who you really are and use your gifts, talents, and abilities to serve the world, serve your kids, and not live on this path of just service to self and only service to self, because obviously you've seen how horrible that is for the recipients of someone who lives like that. I mean, we can all do a little better. We may have narcissistic moments, but it's different than someone who has a pattern of acting like this over time. So realize it's not you. You're not the problem. When they attack, you may have done nothing wrong. They may play victim. They may be aggressive. They'll kind of alternate the way they attack or try to shame or feel guilt. And that's something else, is you need to release the guilt and shame they've put on you. So once you release the guilt and shame, you create detachment, you don't take it personally, and you build yourself, your life's going to change for the better. If you're dealing with one of these people in a divorce, they're the co-parent you have to deal with, you will have to deal with them. However, you can deal with them differently and live your own life free and separate of them, realizing they don't have power over you. I help people with this, so if you look below, I put some things in the description in my profile that can be helpful, as I've had to learn and deal with this on my own, and it took a lot of counseling, spiritual work, resetting my brain and everything to get to where I am. And I love helping people who've dealt with these very traumatic situations move forward in life, get unstuck by becoming more of who they really are. So check that out if you're interested. Like, share, comment, ask questions. To me, it's a community of people learning more about this issue, and I think it's a growing issue in the culture. So the more we can talk with each other and learn from each other and learn to have boundaries with these people, the less they'll be able to operate in the way that they do. So subscribe, like, follow, check it out. I'll be sharing more information on this.